Member.
Thank you to the minister. And with all due respect, I think saying big fans might be a bit of an overstep in terms of their reaction to some of this housing legislation. If I might just clarify as well, is that what they're asking for is not simply a BC REA ability to meet with government and have input into policy and legislation, but they're asking federal, provincial, municipal, regional, Indigenous governance authorities, market, non-market developers, builders, real estate professionals, civil society organizations. I mean, there's a lot of people that need to be at the table, and then there is ability to have subcommittees or different groups that can look at something in a more specific area. So it is something that I know has been asked of the minister, and I reiterate that I think that's important. I'm going to move on to something else, which I think is actually an example of perhaps not getting enough feedback, clarification, and consultation when coming out with legislation. I have a couple of things I'd like to address, as tomorrow is May 1st. And we know what happens on May 1st is that the STR Bill 35 comes into effect in terms of limiting short-term rentals. We did a lot of work on Resort Drive in Parksville and in Qualicum. That was admittedly by this government an oversight in terms of looking at the impact in a particular community with the overreach of this STR legislation and the impact that it would have had to Parksville. I know that Parksville appreciates that the minister heard and has addressed this issue. Now, he could not have not heard this because of the 100 people that came into the legislature and the introduction of the amendment of this act by BC United. But I have another example that I would like to share through the chair to the minister, and would ask if the minister could explain why this particular project and property would be included in the STR ban. So this is a resort community called Aqua Resort. It's a 300 plus unit, 380-degree waterfront, multi-phase concrete high-rise. It is in the process of being developed. Pre-sales have been made. It's on the shore of Lake Okanagan's Lower Mission Resort Drive. It was purpose-built for short-term rentals, distinct in every way from its zoning. So it's got commercial zoning, its OCP designation, waterfront and hotel tourism specific districts next to hotels, a hotel on each side of it. It has a private boat launch, state-of-the-art indoor boat club with crane-assisted rack storage and boat valet service, waterfront boardwalk with beach and waterfront restaurant, multiple swimming pools, spas, hot tubs, concierge, central air conditioning, yoga studio, golf simulator, fire pits, and more hotel-style amenities. To me and to anyone that would look at this, it's clear that this is a resort community. This was built as a resort community. The people who have done the pre-sales and purchased in here paid for something that they believed was legal and was within the OCP. Can the minister please explain to me and to the owners in Aqua Resort why this would be considered under the short-term rental legislation?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Sounds amazing. But your description, I think, has put it out of my price range, can pretty much guarantee. I would say that, first off, I would strongly disagree with the characterization from my friend across the way. At no point did I say it was incorrect or an oversight. From day one, we said that Strata hotels would be able to continue to operate. But because of the complexity of Strata hotels, given the complexity of the different economic models that all of them operate, we wanted to have the time to bring that in, and we said we would bring that into regulation, and that's exactly what we did. I want to recognize the member from Parksville Qualicum, because he also brought lots of different types of scenarios to us, which helped inform the policy. And And so to the specific property, the member knows that we've laid out clearly what is required for new strata hotels to be considered strata hotels. That's laid out clearly. If the member doesn't have the 3 different definitions of that, I can certainly share that with the member. But anyone that wants to come into this space needs to ensure that they've got that. If they've got concierge, that's one important step. So one of the items is staffed at the front desk. So sounds like that they've got that. 1 or more employees or contractors that provide housekeeping services for overnight accommodation. Sounds from the description. You had me sold, so it does sound like that's there. And a platform providing platform services available exclusively for the owners offering short-term rentals at the property. And so those are important pieces that they have to have in order to be considered a strata hotel.
Member.
Thank you to the minister. Can I clarify that the significant difference between whether this is exempted from the legislation or not would be whether there is one central management company that is managing the short-term rentals as opposed to individual owners who are managing those rentals on their own?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll read this into the record. Accommodation before December 8th, 2023, accommodation was provided in a manner similar to the hotel or motel, staffed at front desk on site, 1 or more contractors that provide housekeeping services for overnight accommodation, a platform providing platform services available exclusively for the use of owners offering short-term rentals at the property. These are the elements that have to be in place for anything that's coming in the future.
Member.
Thank you to the minister. Can I just clarify then that the property had to be operating prior to December 28th, 2023? Was that is my understanding of what the minister has just said?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure I had the right language here, and I think it's important to note that this is all on the website already, available to the public, and if the member would like it to be in writing, I can get that in writing for the member as well. So the following services have to be provided that are similar to a hotel or motel. They have to have a staff front desk on site, 1 or more employees or contractors that are providing housekeeping services, overnight accommodation, dedicated online reservation platform, and the strata lot and the property are not able to be used as a principal residence by anyone due to legal use restriction, including zoning, rental management agreement between a manager and an owner of a strata lot, and then a restrictive covenant or a covenant under Section 2019 of the Land Title Act.
Member.
Thank you to the minister. That opens up some opportunities maybe here. So, but if I could just clarify, I didn't understand when I heard, and maybe I didn't hear that date and I heard something else, but a date of May 28th, 2023, was that something in there as a requirement for something to have been operating already, or did I take that out of context?
Minister.
The description I've laid out is going forward.
Minister.
The description that I've laid out is for strata hotels that want to come online into the future, have to have those requirements they must follow. Again, I can get this in writing for the member. The information is on the website for everyone right now.
Member.
Thank you to the minister. I was just confused about that date, so I'll look on the website and find the date. So my concern here is that we've got a building that isn't operating yet. It's still under construction. I would just like to read a paragraph to the minister. This is from a real estate development professional who is in Kelowna. I am not aware of any similar punitive change to a development completed or under construction in the history of the province of British Columbia, where the intended use for a purpose-built, OCP designated, neighborhood planned, zoning applicable project has been stripped of its permissible use rights without grandfathering or compensation. Now, when this legislation was being drafted, can I understand, please, from the minister, why at the very least, those units who were legally operating designated short-term rentals, why were they not grandfathered?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. The information that we've laid out on the website makes it clear for these proponents on what they need to do to ensure that they can operate like a strata hotel. Certainly 2 of the 3 things the member verified in the description of the amazingness of this new property. The third is it seems reasonable for them as a site that wants to operate as a strata hotel to follow. So we made it the information available for them. I appreciate it may mean that some units may not be as easily sold by this salesperson, and that could come as a challenge. I appreciate that. But we want to make sure the rules were clear in that people knew that were coming forward in the future of how they could operate in a strata hotel. So it does mean that they can. It just may mean that they perhaps won't be able to sell the units for as expensively as they wanted, or maybe they have a smaller pool of people that are interested in buying. Those things I can't control, but I can control the fact that this is important work that we did in partnership with a lot of folks to make sure that strata hotels that are operating like hotels can continue to do that, and those that want to come in the future can operate this way as well.
Member. Thank you to the minister. This is cold comfort for a lot of people who are owners in the Janion, for example. And I'm still really struggling, and sorry if this is through the chair, I'm still really struggling with how we can look at a building like the Janion that is sold as strata units, zoned specifically tourism, short-term rental, legally operating commercial licenses, owned by those individual strata owners. Why are we making this distinction between the Janion and what the minister is now describing as strata hotels and the ability to operate? I don't understand why the good people who own in a building like the Janion, who are operating legally, who purchased on the absolute understanding that it was zoned appropriately, they were following the rules, that the rug was pulled out from under them without any expectation that these types of short-term rentals would be caught up in Bill 35.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And this is a conversation we've had at great lengths. Again, I'll say that I appreciate that investors have bought homes and want to use them for short-term rentals. What we're saying is that when you're losing the percentage of homes towards short-term rental, it's putting a huge strain on families and people in our communities. People are not able to access housing. We've seen studies that show rents have gone up because of this. And so we can spend the next 4 hours going on this, but we've canvassed this multiple times. Those are housing units that we believe should be made available for people for either long-term rental or in some cases, if a person says, I don't want to be doing long-term rental, sold. We have seen both. We've seen people sell the units, and we've also seen people say, you know what, I'm just going to put it on a long-term market. This is the reason why we're going in this direction. It's a balanced approach that ensures that we can have short-term rentals available in communities to support tourism, but also that we can prioritize these complete homes and make them available for people who are struggling for housing in our communities.
Member.
Thank you to the minister and through the chair. I feel that when I ask these questions and the minister says that we've canvassed this already, that is disingenuous. We have not even begun to have these conversations, because every time I ask a question about this, the minister dictates what to me sounds like a press release. And that is the answer we get over and over and over. The minister knows that I get, and I think this entire House knows, as I break into tears in here from time to time, I take people's issues and concerns and impact to their lives very seriously. And I would hope that the minister and this ministry would as well. There are terrible consequences to people who have purchased these units, and they are incorrectly painted with a brush on the other side of the house that these are evil investors. This government has destroyed people financially and emotionally because of Bill 35 applying to these units that it simply would not apply to. And the minister can say over and over that this is needed for short-term housing. This is a limited number of units. These are not these investor-owned condos that were built for people to live in. And the people that are being impacted and hurt in these legal short-term rentals, they agree with the majority of Bill 35. They agree with it. They are saying, yes, we need to put some guardrails on here. We need to make sure that there are not those units in condominiums that were meant for people to live in, to rent in and to buy. They should not have short-term rentals in them. That is not what this is, and the minister is not hearing that. He's not listening to people, and he is not reacting to the actual real-life impacts of people. And so to say that we have canvassed this, we have not even begun to canvass this. It's important, and it's important today because tomorrow is May 1st, and this is going to have, and it already has, had unbelievable negative impact on British Columbians. I would just like to, if the chair will indulge me for a moment, I have got a couple of quotes and some information on the people and their families that have invested in these in the Janion and these other short-term, legally operating short-term rental buildings. Here's one headed "Pension Plan Gone Wrong." Quote, "I have been in a state of shock and under extreme stress since the announcement of this legislation. My financial well-being has just evaporated. 16 years ago, my partner and I were professional musicians with 2 young children. Realized we needed to get serious about our financial planning in order to make sure we could provide for ourselves and never be a burden to our children while we were able to pursue our musical careers." Now, I'll jump to the end, but after they have lived frugally, never going out to restaurants, never getting babysitters, never having a new car, they were able to come up with a down payment to make in an investment in a hotel-zoned condo in Victoria. And this ends with, "I'm now 62, still self-employed, having pivoted career-wise a few times to pay the bills. I am very tired of the years of hustling and working extremely long hours. I was planning to retire in 3 years, but now I can't." That is the evil investor that this government is going after, but that's not, that is only one. Young family with a new baby. "You mischaracterize who short-term rental owners are. We're not wealthy people from out of town. We're not corporations. I'm from Greater Victoria, born in '86, starting out in elementary school in Sydney, working hard. I have a Hungarian grandfather who left Romania in the '50s when his property was expropriated. Please understand that most short-term rental owners have been messaging you that they believe in 95% of Bill 35. I'm sending you a photo of my family. We're not privileged out-of-town investor speculators that you imagine. We are collateral damage to this legislation." I'm going to just do one more here. A senior with a disability, and this is part of a transcript from a call. "I apologize. I own in the Astoria, but I'm legally blind, so it's hard for me to participate in this call. The situation shouldn't have anything to do with Airbnbs. This is strictly about the provincial government breaking a law that's been in place since my parents were children in Vancouver. The government told us we could do things the right way, the legal way to have vacation rentals. It was expensive for us to do this, expensive to buy into these buildings, costly for our taxes, but we are not lawbreakers. We did what the government told us was the proper thing to do. Many seniors, like ourselves, will be facing bankruptcy as we have to sell at a loss. If we're lucky, we'll be left with a few dollars in the bank. So when this minister says that all of these investors are taking these suites out of the market, I would like him to please speak directly to the people that I have just read this from, to the other people who have been financially devastated by Bill 35, so unfairly pushed on people without consultation, without the ability to grandfather, and without any heart from this government hearing and understanding what you have done to British Columbians.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I'll say a couple things here. We have canvassed this at great lengths. The member may feel like we need to do more, and that's okay. This is the member's time. I have no problem talking about this further. I think what the members doesn't often talk about in this place is the people in our communities who are struggling for that housing, who need that housing. We're not saying to these folks that you have to sell. We're saying you can rent it. You can rent it in the market. In fact, majority of the sales that have happened in these buildings have been sold at a profit, some considerable profits. And that's for those that sell it. I know many folks that are actually renting these buildings. And so what we're saying is we need housing for long-term renters in our communities. I appreciate these are challenging topics to discuss, but I have to say to the member that we are seeing record numbers of investors buying homes and then putting them into the short-term rental space while we have families who are struggling in our communities. Now, a member talked about Victoria. I grew up in this town, born and raised here. My dad is involved in the tourism community. He wasn't when he was alive. Drove taxi. My mom owned a restaurant in town. I understand tourism is important in this community. I get it. Grew up here. But when I have friends that I grew up with who can't live in our community anymore because and they can't raise their kids in our communities because we're losing more and more housing stock towards people wanting to buy investment properties for short-term rentals, it puts a real strain on our community. So I appreciate the members passionate about it. I'm passionate from a different perspective, which is people really need access to this housing. Now, member read some stories. I've got stories of people who now have actually got into housing that were short-term rentals. A woman in Vancouver reached out to me who now not only has a home for her family, but is running a daycare out of it. We have so many examples of people who are like, we actually have access to housing now, which we didn't have access to. So our goal with this is to ensure that we have housing available for people, housing units that were meant for housing available for people. And when they're operating like strata hotels, then they're able to do that. That's the differentiation that we made with this legislation.
Member.
Thank you to the minister. The minister said that housing that was meant for housing is being used for housing. And the point of what I was saying is that these were never meant for housing. These were never built for housing. They were built, the minister knows this. And to tell us that these people have actually been able, through the chair, that these people have actually been able to sell for a profit, we know that the market value of those strata hotels, although that's not how you refer to them, those strata-specific buildings for short-term rentals, their market value dropped 30% overnight with no warning for those people. So other than the Premier of British Columbia actually being able to make a profit from selling a short-term rental unit, other British Columbians have not. And the minister talks about families who are struggling financially. You have created 600 families who are now struggling financially with this bill. And the minister is not hearing me and is comparing apples to oranges. The woman who has found a place in Vancouver who she can now have a childcare facility in, fabulous. That doesn't sound to me like it was a 250 square foot purpose-built short-term rental that she has moved into. So I would ask that the Premier, I would ask that the Minister continue or begin to give consideration for at the least providing grandfathering for these people. I understand, and I know it's before the court, so the Minister will not speak about this, but that there are a group of people who have found themselves in this position where they are being devastated and have now brought a lawsuit forward to the province of British Columbia asking for this to be paused and ultimately asking for compensation. And that's what this government has done. Are you, okay, well, I can move on to a whole other section, or it looks like you need to read something. Okay.
Minister.
Reply with the member knows that I can't talk about anything that's in front of the courts. One case was brought forward and it was thrown out, and there is one in front of the courts right now, and I can't comment on that. Now, Honourable Chair, I move that the committee rise and report progress and ask Neve to sit again.
Members, you've heard the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. This committee is adjourned. We'll call the committee to order. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move vote number 33, resolve the sum not exceeding $1,033,255,000 be granted His Majesty to defray expenses of the Ministry of Housing and Ministry of Operations for 31st March 2025.
Member for West Vancouver, Capilano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to move on from Bill 35 because my blood pressure is hard to manage. I am going to ask a final, this is a favor, actually, or favor, but a question to the Minister. If I can have somebody from Aqua Resort in Kelowna reach out to somebody in the ministry. I understand the information is on the website. I think there are some unique issues with respect to this particular project, but if I might ask that you can perhaps later provide me with a contact and we can have these folks connect, because maybe there is a solution that we can find for them, which I think everybody would be better off for. Okay.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, certainly. Right after where we rise today, we'll get you information and then make that contact.